Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, folks. I hope we've got the forestry people at the table.
Yep.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you. Given the Queensland Government's recent rescinding of the South East Queensland Forest Agreement, I've just confirmed with SOPAC that the exemption from federal environment laws no longer applies to forestry activities in that South East Queensland area. So my question is whether the Minister or the Department have advised the logging operators who are now proposing to resume in that area that the regulatory sphere has changed and they may well need to take additional steps to acquit their responsibilities under federal environment laws.
I can answer in part. Senator, that EPBC Act exemption never applied to Queensland because there was never an RFA.
Yeah, but there's a special section that applied to the South East Queensland forest area, which did apply, which did make them exempt, which now no longer applies.
That's right. So if they want to take additional activity that's beyond those arrangements, then it's been confirmed the EPBC Act applies.
That's correct.
The decision maker around that is obviously the Environment Minister or his delegate. So they engage with people who may want to take actions which may affect the EPBC Act. So they take that contact with people who may want to take actions that might affect their legislation.
So you haven't had any outreach with industry, your department or the Minister to advise them about this new responsibility and obligation on them?
Senator, no, we haven't, but it would still be up to any of the logging companies there, would be up to them to actually refer that matter to the Federal Environment Minister for his consideration under Part 3 of the EPBC Act as to whether or not that constituted a matter that needed looking into, looking after matters of national environmental significance.
Indeed. So just to confirm, no outreach to tell industry of that. You're leaving that with SOPAC.
I just wanted to clarify one thing: is what are you basing the decision of the state government on? Is there a document or an instrument that they have signed, or
yes?
And what's that?
Well, the Queensland Forest Agreement has been rescinded by the Queensland Premier a couple of months ago.
Are you sure about that?
Is there something you'd like to share, Minister?
Well, has it been communicated to us?
Certainly the Queensland Government notified that they were considering a new policy of reopening logging back into some national parks. I am not aware that they have formally rescinded the South East Queensland Forestry Agreement.
No,
it's interesting. I have documents.
I was worried that your questions might have actually been hypothetical in that sense. So,
sorry, Minister, can you speak up?
I was concerned that the line of questioning you were making was hypothetical in that sense. In that, you say that it's been rescinded. The state government, I haven't seen any media report or news item or statement from them or communication to us that it has been rescinded. I've certainly seen discussions about that they may be in consultation about it, but there's been, and I'm happy to be corrected, I haven't been formally advised or have seen any formal pronouncement by the state government that it is rescinded. So until that happens, I assume, I think correctly, that it continues to be in place. So just, I'm just,
no, that's
if you've got information that says, black and white, the state government's rescinded it, I would be very keen to see that.
So Senator, there's no RFA in South East Queensland.
No, there never was.
There's a South East Queensland Forestry Agreement, which I understand is still in place. There has been, I understand there's been a change in policy by the Queensland Government in terms of potentially opening some national parks or previous reserve areas back up for logging. In terms of the Export Control Act, which is the main legislative instrument that DAF has a relationship with industry in Queensland, they were still required, should they export over 2,000 tonnes, to actually seek a licence through the Export Control Act. So whether the SEQFA is there or whether it's not there, it's not a matter for us. However, any logging operations that they would undertake, they would need to undertake in alignment with the state legislation. Had the state government rescinded the SEQFA, they would need to then advise those logging operations that they would need to seek the Environment Minister's approval.
Thank you. I'm using rescinded in the layperson sense of the word, not the legal sense
Well,
of
you're
the
a
word.
lawyer, you know what rescinded means.
Yeah, yeah, good. So, that fundamental changes to the content of that agreement. Well, that's my next question. Thank you. Would it be standard for previous signatories to such an agreement to notify the Commonwealth, noting that it's not an RFA but it is an FA?
If they were going to reopen logging operations, then they would certainly need to let the Environment Department know, and the Environment Department, I'm sure, would also let us know.
That's very interesting because the Environment Department just confirmed that they've written to the Queensland Government about this very issue, confirming that the exemption no longer applies given that the agreement is no longer in existence, or has at least been radically changed in its content.
I don't want to
So
put...
they've not
Senator, I don't want to put
corresponded
words
with
in SOPAC's mouth, but I suspect that letter was based on the change in policy by the Queensland Government rather than rescinding the SEQFA. So the SOPAC would be concerned about a change from what was in the SEQFA in terms of what was slated to be put into reserve versus what was still available for multi-use forest, a range of different uses indeed, not just logging. So my understanding would be that they would have written on the basis of the change of policy rather than rescinding the SEQFA.
And so,
So
I've
if the
written
fundamental-
to, so
Sorry,
I've written to Minister McVeigh, I think, from recollection, or the Premier, one or the other, asking them to notify their plans, because I've seen the sort of the broad comments around, but no actual media statement, government announcement, government letter that says that they're no longer complying to the CRA. So I've written to them to ask us whether or not they can notify us of their particular plans and what their actions are, just to confirm it, if that's the case.
Have they responded to that letter yet, Minister?
Not yet.
No. Was it sent? When was that letter sent?
In the last 2 weeks, I think.
Yeah, last couple of
Reasonably
weeks.
recently,
So
okay.
it's
Is there
within a
any-
reasonable time. It's not. I would expect them to.
And pardon my ignorance here, but is there any sort of funding implication were that forest agreement to have been effectively ripped up?
The SEQFA is actually an intra-state agreement between 4 parties within the state of Queensland. So it'd be a matter for those 4 parties about whether there's any compensation payable,
Sure.
for example.
But the Commonwealth doesn't have any
No,
interest
the
in
Commonwealth
that
is
regard.
not a party to that agreement.
No, because it's not an RFA.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
So that could have been the same. Well, I don't want to put words in SOPAC's mouth, but you might want to clarify whether we're talking about the same thing. That
Yes,
is, a
thank you,
joint letter
Minister.
by us, which is simply an invitation for, I think it was Minister McVeigh,
That's correct.
to notify us of what their plans are, if any.
Well, I mean, they've issued logging contracts in areas that were meant to be protected under that forest agreement. So I guess the distinction is it a rescission of the entire agreement or is it a change to the fundamental nature of the content of the agreement such that the agreement effectively no longer exists? So I think we're probably talking semantics in that respect, but I might take that up.
Well, if they've issued, we'd be interested to understand if they've issued contracts within those areas.
Yes, yes.
If that could be made available to us, that would be helpful.
Well, I might suggest you take that up with them and I'll certainly keep an eye on the issue as
Because we're
well.
not parties to the agreement, as you can appreciate.
Beg your pardon?
We're not parties to the agreement. The
No,
Commonwealth
but
is not
you
a
are
party
the
to the
Federal
agreement.
Minister for Forestry. It is, as you suggest,
and
something
that's
you
why
should
I
take an
asked if
active
you've got
interest
that
in.
information, you might want to make it available to us. That would be helpful. Secondly, I've taken
The Greens would be
exercise-
happy to provide you with information about
as
the
I've said,
Queensland
I've
Government.
exercised my responsibility by writing to the Minister McVeigh to understand what his plans are, and I will. I expect him to respond in due course.
Thank you. I might leave it there. Thank you, Chair.